Well, if you're going to reach people in new ways, you need to get pretty creative. That's the guiding principle behind a podcast from the Minnesota Department of Health as they work to get support to those battling addiction. Fox 9's Sarah Danick explains.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Stories from the Field.
A podcast in the making, taking shape to debut later this month.
We are joined by 3 Minnesotans who have unique insight on opioid use and how it impacts many Minnesotans of color.
As the Minnesota Department of Health takes a creative approach to battling rising overdoses in the state.
When I got out into the community, what I found out was that we are doing opioids. We just don't call them opioids.
The most recent numbers show Minnesota drug overdose deaths increased sharply in the first half of 2020 compared to the year before. They're hoping these 5 pilot podcasts, Stories from the Field, might help. Episode 1 includes Pearl Evans, who works for MDH but also has battled her own heroin addiction.
Often when you have these conversations, you hear from a clinical or academic perspective, and there's a disconnect, but my story is raw. My story is real.
And community outreach partners doing on-the-ground work every day.
There's a lot of stigma associated with using alcohol and drugs in general in our community. In fact, if you're using opioids, there's even more stigma.
Other episodes will include views from a tribal perspective and the life-saving impacts of Narcan.
Thank you again so much for coming onto this podcast today.
The hope is that messages of hope and help will reach a wider audience and save lives.
Even if somebody who is a user doesn't listen to this podcast, maybe their parents will, maybe a friend will. It's just connecting with somebody who can then connect with somebody else who might need help.
Sarah Danick, Fox 9.